Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Blind Spot. So, very good episode where we have the team tracking down, essentially they become a part of a gigantic hacker scavenger hunt. Basically, there's at the time believed to be two brothers who are the Garin brothers who basically run a group called Leak Hub, basically leaking a lot of top government type of situation type of stuff, like stuff that, the general public doesn't know, stuff the government doesn't want the general public to know, stuff like that. But basically, obviously we end up finding out later on that it's not two brothers, in fact it's two sisters. But nevertheless, they've been in the information game for a while, but now they've kind of gotten bored of it. They're like, hey, we're giving it to someone else, but we're not just going to give it to anybody. Basically, got to solve some of our riddles and stuff like that. Which Patterson kind of figures some stuff out. I just love Patterson in this episode. Like, basically, like, oh yeah, we don't have that much. Like, I was like, oh yeah, but me doing this might take a day. And before Weller could say anything, she's like, Patterson, we don't have time for that. Mocking him. And then, like, later on, it's like, oh yeah, she's like, I should go, in case there's any puzzles or something that needs to be solved. He's like, well, nah. Kurt's like, I'm pretty good at puzzles. And she kind of laughs at him. He's like, yeah, I bet you are, but in your own way. It's just like, nice job just laughing at your boss like that. But, I really, I forgot the sister's name. The actress who, the main sister, the one that you actually got to see, talk a lot. I really like her because she heavily reminds me, personality-wise, she reminds me of Rich. She's one of those characters that kind of, they just had a little fun with. The fact of the matter is, she's just, it's just like, oh my god, yeah or no, right? They're actually out there looking for two brothers. How messed up is that in this modern day and everything? It's like, oh yeah, the fact of the matter is, you would like to meet my sister. Tell me, oh, you'd like to meet my sister, wouldn't you? It's like, well, she died in a boat crash. Thanks for bringing up the bad memories. And then at one point, walking down the hall, it's like, yeah, it seems one of you guys can make it. It's like, except for you. I have a feeling that you're just not going to make it. So it's just like, she was just a lot of a good. Like I said, it's so interesting because you don't see it too often with that little comedic humor to this side of the show, but the little moments just make it shine out that much. Is in particular her character, as well as taking someone like Rich. Rich is the best example of it. Also, I appreciate the fact that it's like, oh yeah, my sister, she's actually not dead. That was kind of all bullshit. They got tired of the whole information business because basically they eventually found out oh yeah, the government's just feeding us fake information so it can influence other governments and stuff like that. And then a lot of times we have to double check stuff. It's boring. It's too much work now. It's probably not the thrills that they once upon a time. So. But a very interesting thing in this episode was the fact is, along with the scavenger hunt, we had Weller as well as Jane undercover solving things. I mean, really quickly, what I thought was kind of crazy was that thing at the beginning where it's one person, obviously one person grabbed the package. It was that dude Serpent 16 and immediately got his throat slit. Someone else run up to the guy that took it from Serpent 16 and shot him. I was like, okay, is this how you cover up? Just you pass it on to the next person. And then that way that I was like, are you signing up for this or did you not know this was part of the plan? It's like, no, those are just other hackers that was involved in this whole scavenger hunt thing, killing off the competition to steal the prize. The clues from them. But nevertheless had Weller as well as Jane kind of going undercover for this, having to solve some puzzles. Even at one point getting hooked up to a lie detector. And it's like, oh yeah, once again proving how much Garin had a lot of fun with this. Being like, oh yeah, go ahead, ask me. And Weller's about to talk to her. She's like, yeah, I'm just messing with you. This is actually pre-recorded. So, and just this lady is too much. I loved her. I gotta find out the actress's name. I see her and stuff from time to time, but I gotta, I see her all the time, but I don't know her name. But, nevertheless, obviously at the end of it, Kurt and Jane technically didn't win. Because basically the final puzzle is hey, you have to press the button. By pressing the button, you get out, but the other room next to you will be gassed. And obviously, Kurt and Jane aren't willing to do that. The other team, however, did do it. They pressed the button, but that in turn opened Jane and Weller's door, but it poisoned them because it was hey, I guess because the whole point of the test is to show who does, it ends up being Kurt's way of being hey, we have the more morals because hey, our team, was dying and we went out of our way to save them, but these guys, they ran out immediately. They didn't care. So it's you wanted to give the information. That's what this whole trial was about, to see who was worthy of the information because, it's oh yeah, the fact of the matter is the other dude, only one of his team members got there because only one of the two got there, mainly because the other dude got the crap beat out of him. So, I do like the twist later on that you find out that those guys were actually working with Sandstorm, because this is all about obviously keeping a lot of this information out of the hands of bad guys. Like there's no telling what, not even just bad guys, any other government, what they could do with it. So there's that, but also because the Garans had collected some stuff on the Truman Protocol. That's what the guy that Shepard killed in front of Kirk, because he was, didn't want him to talk or whatever. So he had brought that up to Kirk before. It's like it's key to her plan that with it they can kind of unravel her entire plan. What I thought was very interesting is the whole situation. Like obviously we pick it up from last week's episode with the whole Bangkok situation, her buying all those chemicals and stuff. The guy that she's making a deal with is trying to back down, but unluckily for him as well as unluckily for Shepard, things kind of spiral out of control when you have Patterson freezing her bank account so she can't pay the guy, and it's like, oh, he's jumped to conclusions like, oh, this is a setup and everything. And then the entire time you have Weller back here and be like, so what's up? It's like, yeah, that's Patterson's like, yeah, that's it. It's like, really? He's like, huh, that's anticlimactic. While halfway across the world is like, oh, it's not that anticlimactic for Shepard trying to get to the chemicals and everything. Sadly, she finds herself getting arrested. Did not see that coming, because like, oh, Shepard, the mysterious Shepard, head of, Sandstorm, the fact of the matter. Well, all right, I think, yeah, because Sandstorm isn't, I keep forgetting that. Sandstorm's not actually what they're actually called. I don't think they actually have a name. That's just what Naz and, her team referred to them as. But nevertheless, it's like she's kept her real identity secret for so long. She's kind of worked in the shadows and stuff like that. And the fact of the matter is, gets caught like that. I mean, granted, that's because it was a situation where that was a thing she couldn't have seen coming, like knowing that they would freeze her account like that. So she's in jail, and there's a particular guard, and I feel so bad for that guard. I was like, obviously, because he's getting a report on his computer, but his computer's messing up, so he doesn't realize that, oh yeah, the woman he's got in his cell is super dangerous and super bad, and she ends up killing him and getting out. But there was this whole conversation, obviously, because his dad kind of treats him like crap. I bet you in retrospect, his dad's kind of like, I wish I hadn't treated you like crap, now that you're, on the floor bleeding and dead. So there's that. But she ended up bringing up this whole conversation like, oh, that guy, he was definitely your dad, huh? Trust me, he knows that you hate him, that because he's a bit of a tyrant, and the fact of the matter is he knows that you hate him. It's the thing he thinks about the first time, the moment he wakes up, and it's the last thing he thinks about right before he goes to sleep. And the guy later on is asking her, is like, oh, so who was the tyrant? Was it your father or was it you? And Shepard responds, both. Because I'm sure it was meant to garnish like some sympathy with the dude, but I'm thinking like that was her also speaking from some truth, because we really don't know that much about Shepard's background. I'm sure like some of that will come up before. It makes you wonder, I get a feeling maybe not even Roman or Remy really knew too much about her, because obviously like she probably kept her past secret. We do know the whole situation about why, like there was that particular lake or whatever that Roman had brought her to. It's like, oh yeah, that's where Shepard was, and it's like basically the chemicals were in the lake and stuff like that, and so women couldn't have children. Like in Shepard's case, like she couldn't have children because like it ended up one, like she had to have her uterus removed because of like what it did to her body and everything. I think that was the case. So that's as far into her past that we really know. I guess it's really something we're going to have to, like I said, we'll probably dive into a little bit more, finding out about. Obviously, she's had some government affiliation in the past, like, whether it was like she was in the military or something like that. She had to have some kind of training to be like, because in her eyes, she's not being a terrorist, she's being a patriot. I'm trying to bring this country back to the position that it originally was. So, but it was kind of interesting seeing her kind of break that a little bit. Like I said, it was for sympathy, but I think it's also because she believes it too, because it's like, because being the way she is, she ended up pushing both of her children away. She ended up having like Jane not wanting to be on her side anymore. The fact that like, so and then eventually led to Roman not wanting to be on her side. So I think she takes heed of that, but at the moment, I think it was more so for sympathy, because she knew it would, it was her truth, yes, but it's a truth that she's not willing to like, crumble on her, because the fact of the matter is, it's like, hey, I have a mission, whether it's my son or my daughter, if they get in my way, I will take them out, because this is my mission and it's too important. The fact of the matter is, subsequently since then, they have not actually physically crossed paths with each other. Now I think about it. The last time that Jane or Roman came across Shepard was when obviously she was, setting up the FBI team to be killed. Obviously had Kurt off dealing with the fake Ally situation, but nevertheless, they did get their hands on the Truman Protocol. Granted, it's been heavily redacted, so not even the Garens were able to really fully get it, know what's on it. But what we saw is there was a signature. There's a whole thing about the cogs. Like Naz was like, "Oh yeah, my contact said follow the cogs." That being Cade and everything. Now that we know that now, but nevertheless, what we saw on it is like subsequently, what was it like? I forgot who it was, but subsequently, every president that's been elected has signed this paper. So it's not whatever the Truman Protocol is, whatever it is, it's at the highest level that basically the presidents are signing off on whatever this situation is. So obviously we're going to have to like dig a little deeper and find out what it's all about though. There was this sweet moment near the end of the episode, like obviously Kurt's talking to Jane about everything, about what went down. Like obviously Jane had said like, yeah, the fact that she trusted Kurt because the fact is that he is such an honest person, but at the same time, she's like, she knows that the reason why he's working, she's like, the reason why he's working with me is because he was forced to. Also, there was a conversation that came up too, like during this, it's like, okay, what's the best thing about your partner and what's like the worst thing about your partner? And for Kurt, it was the same thing. It's like, best is like, the fact of the matter is that he's kept walls up, obviously, because of the whole Taylor Shaw situation. So he's kept walls up his entire life, but she was able to slip through it like when no one else was. But that was also the bad thing, because she slipped through those walls because she got close to him, finding out the truth about her basically being a mole and everything, and what her true purpose was, and her not actually being Taylor Shaw. It broke his heart. So because early in the episode, obviously, like we see the moments of like Jane and Weller, because obviously they're walking at first. She's like, "Oh, this is actually kind of nice." He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." It's like, "Oh yeah, this is, can you believe this is our job?" She's like, "Oh," he's like, "What do you mean? Like, oh, for once we're not being shot at?" She's like, "Yeah, it's like normal. It's kind of nice." And it's like, "Yeah, normal's kind of good every once in a while." But the fact of the matter is, she brought up the conversation of like, "Are you okay?" Like she's like, "No, I mean, are you okay?" Naz is gone, and then there's a whole Allie situation in Colorado. I guess on some level she's worried, like, it's like things haven't worked out relationship-wise for him twice now. Plus also, like, maybe Naz being gone might bring him to be like, okay, I need to go to Colorado. I mean, at the very least, he's going to stop this whole Sandstorm situation, obviously. But it's like, when it's all said and done, does that mean you're going to move out there with Allie to be closer to your child and stuff like that? I mean, that's what it's kind of alluding to, but also because it's just like, obviously just concerned, like, hey, are you okay? Like, which to me, I look into that a little deeper, obviously, like, there a more romantic element to it beneath the surface. But I love what Kurt ends up saying to her later on. He's like, the fact of the matter is, like, we weren't really, he was like, we were kind of forced to work together, but not in that sense. It was actually Shepard who kind of forced us to work together. We're kind of, obviously, they're kind of pawns in her game and everything, but even then he's like, I wouldn't take that back for anything, because no matter what it was, you finding your way to me finding my way to you, I would never replace. That's one thing I would never undo. And so they're about to kiss until obviously Tasha and Patterson come back. So it's like, it was so close. It's like, go ahead and be together. Like, obviously they reached that point, obviously back in season 1 where there was that, but now they're kind of finally going back to it. Like, all lies are off the table, but there's still her lying about the whole Roman situation, about the fact is that he killed Taylor's mom, so that there's still that whole lie to deal with. But at the same time, in this episode, we had Reed returning. The fact is, he's apologizing to Kurt, like, I'm sorry, I was snapping at you, I was snapping at Zapata. You guys are all just trying to help me and everything, and I'm sorry for that. And he's just like, and Kurt's like, I can't give you your badge back. He's like, I completely understand. Just like, I came here to ask you for that time off, and he's like, get some help. And Kurt's like, yeah, take as much time as you need. Just make sure you come back. You're 100% focused. You're 100% back to being who you need to be. And he's like, yeah. So he's like, yeah, I haven't run this up the chain about the whole situation. He's like, so don't worry about that. Like, the fact of the matter is, you just focus on getting better, which obviously Tasha's like, and the way they talk is like, they did see something on that tape about what happened to him, but at least Reed's like, at the very least, like, I know the truth, and at least this gives me a chance that I can move forward and move past it, move on with my life. So, and he ends up talking to Dr. Sun later on, and she's like, oh, the fact is, because he's having these constant flashes about everything that's just kind of been happening to him lately, all the like stuff that's just kind of compile up, like all the problems compiling upon themselves, everything that's happened so far. And he's just wondering, like, initially when he used to go out in the field, he used to be so sure. Like, it's like he'd be pumped because he's like, hey, this is a moment where I'm 100% sure I know who I am. But now he doesn't really know if that's the case. And Sun's like, maybe this means you should kind of distance yourself from triggers. And he's like, in this particular case, being an FBI agent, at first he thinks she's joking. She's like, you might have to consider that. Like, it is a possibility, and don't completely remove it from the table. So maybe being an FBI agent is just going to spark that. But along those same lines with everything, we end up finding out from Tasha that basically the detective that was looking into Jones' murder, obviously about, the suspect, getting away and everything, skipping town, basically started looking into the evidence a little bit more, finding out like, oh, there might be some tampering with it, which obviously at the end of the episode, we see Zapata getting arrested. So what does this mean? It's like problem compounded upon problems. Like, hey, the Reed situation came up, but it's like, hey, that's kind of being dealt with. Oh, and now we have Tasha being arrested for tampering with some evidence. And it's like, I wonder would she be 100% open about everything? I mean, now that everything's kind of out on the table, I mean, that's still Reed's business about why exactly this whole Jones situation happened. Obviously, he didn't do anything to Jones. I mean, his only crime was the fact is he was standing there, obviously tampering with evidence and stuff like that, but he was there at the crime scene, but he didn't do anything to help him. So there's that aspect to it as well. But I mean, I wonder will this turn into a situation where Reed will have to kind of do his best to track down Frankie to make sure that he can turn him in. I wonder will Nikki play any part in that? I mean, granted, she's kind of keeping her distance and everything because obviously, I wonder, like, the fact is Reed is getting cleaned up now, too. But obviously for Nikki, it was like a weekend type of thing. Other than that, I'm like a mother during the day and stuff, like during the weekend and everything. So that's just like a party lifestyle thing over the weekend. Other than that, I go back into mom mode. So very interested to see where that storyline takes us. And also with the fact is that at the end of the episode, we have, that was the end of the episode, but the whole Shepard situation where she's like, yeah, the fact of the matter is Kurt is getting too close. Like, yeah, he was important to the operation and everything, but the fact is he's getting too close. He's becoming a liability. We'll just have to change up the plan. It's like, because they're etching so much closer and getting closer and closer, the fact of the matter is now Shepard's kind of having to act a little more retroactively because it's like, we can't have any more screw ups. This whole situation in Bangkok kind of like sent us back a little bit, delayed us, so it's like we can't have any more mess ups. And Weller and them getting closer and everything, it's not a big help. So hopefully next episode we kind of find out a little bit more what this Truman plan is all about, what it is exactly Shepard had plans. Because remember, she brought it up last episode, and obviously they reiterated it this episode. Is like, she was like, yeah, so whatever I'm about to do, I recommend you stay away from the Western Hemisphere for a while. So, and obviously I can only assume those are explosive, or maybe it's some kind of neural gas or something of the sort. So something big, bad, and dangerous is all I can say. So very interested to see where the next episode takes us. So, because like since I brought it up earlier in the episode, it makes me think like this might be like the subsequent showdown of like a Roman meeting up with Shepard after. I mean, this might be the moment where the truth comes out, where Shepard's like, you think I wiped your memory? Oh, your sister lied to you. She's the one that wiped your memory. You still had your memory when it was all said and done. She's manipulating. She's using you. Come back to me, Roman, type of thing. So, I mean, we will just have to wait to see. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.